Hello everyone, I'm Poonam Sharma, your science teacher. Welcome you all. Another session of chapter number 2 is Matter Around Us Pure, which is chapter number 2 of chemistry of class 9. So children, in previous classes, I have already discussed or explained mixtures, compounds, elements and difference between them. In previous class, I have also elaborated types of solutions, how they are different from each other, and how can we find out the concentration of solution. We have already discussed few numericals based on concentration of solution. So I hope that part is clear to you. Now in today's class, I'll continue with the same chapter, but today I'll start with the part 2 of this chapter, which is separation of substances. As you know, mixtures are made up of two or more elements or compounds, and these mixtures can be homogeneous or heterogeneous. So when we mix two or more elements or compounds together, which results in the formation of mixtures, sometimes some impurities or undesirable materials are present in them, which are not required by us. We need to separate them out. And for separation of those undesirable substances or impurities from a mixture, we'll use different techniques. And these techniques are known as separation techniques. But these separation techniques are different from different kind of mixtures. If mixtures are of two solid substances, then we use different kind of technique. And if mixtures are of solid and liquid, then different technique will use. If mixture is a combination of two liquids only, so in that case also we use different techniques. So that's why we use different techniques depending on the type of solution. And if we follow this method of separation of mixtures, there are different ways or characteristics on the basis of which we choose these techniques. And what are these bases? First is what type of components are present in a mixture. On the basis of that, we'll choose particular technique. Apart from this, if we use physical state of the components, what type of physical components are present in them? Then difference in the properties of various components. Components which are present in mixtures, they have different properties. So by keeping all these points in mind, we'll use techniques for separating the mixtures. So let's discuss all these techniques one by one in detail. So first of all, I'm talking about components which are present in a mixture if they are solids. If two solid components are present in a mixture, so we'll use different techniques for them. For example, if we take a mixture of sugar and sand, or pebbles or sand, so for that we need to use different techniques, and we want to separate iron fillings from sulfur or ammonium chloride from common salt. So we are using different techniques in these type of examples in which two solids are involved. Now, how can we use these techniques? First is separation of components of a mixture by including hand picking or sieving method. These are very general techniques which we are using in our home also. When your mother is preparing food for you, so in that when she is preparing pulses, so in those pulses sometimes some stones are present. So these are undesirable substances or impurities which we don't want to consume. So we need to separate them out. With the help of hand picking method, we can easily separate. But when we are performing hand picking method, the size of the particles of two components should be different, so that it is easy for us to identify impurities from the purities one. So it is easy for us to separate out. So this one method is hand picking method. It is a manual method which we use to separate when two solid components of different sizes are present in a mixture. And second method is sieving. As you can see in this picture, this is sieving. When we want to make chapatis, so we need to sieve that flour. So, and that flour contains some impurities or undesirable components. So with the help of this sieve, we can easily separate. And in this case also, the size of the particles of two components should be different. And if they are of same size, so we cannot separate them out. One should be very fine, one should be greater, one should have larger particles. So in that case, we use the sieving method. And this sieving you observe when some construction work is going on road, when laborers are making buildings. There also they are using this sieving method when they want to separate the pebbles from cement. There also they use this sieving method. So these are manual methods which we use to separate two solid components present in a mixture. Then we have sublimation. Sublimation process is that process in which solid directly changes into gaseous form. If you remember, I have explained this sublimation process when we have done chapter number 1. So in sublimation, solid directly changes into gases without going through liquid phase. So in this case also, two solid substances are present. Let's take an example of naphthalene balls, which we use in our home also to protect our clothes from insects. We use these white colored balls, and when we keep them with the clothes, after a certain period of the time, we'll observe there is a change in the size of the balls. They'll become smaller. Another example of such kind is ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride salt, when you take this ammonium chloride salt in an inverted funnel and just keep this cotton plug here, start providing heat, so then you can observe that this ammonium chloride salt, it vaporizes, and in the form of vapors, it deposits here on the sides of the funnel and it solidifies here. In this way, we can separate the ammonium chloride. Now these are the methods which we can separate for two solid substances together. Then separation of a mixture if it contains solid and liquid. So there are different techniques which we use, and these are filtration, centrifugation, evaporation, crystallization, chromatography, and distillation. And last one is centrifugation. This is centrifugation. Now these techniques we are using if a mixture is a combination of solid and liquid. First technique is filtration. In this filtration technique, the suspended particles can easily separate when it passes through a funnel, separating funnel, and it allows the liquid or the solvent particle to pass through it in the form of filter. Now, just look at this example. Just take a muddy water in which sand is present, and it will dissolve it in water. Although this mud cannot completely dissolve in water, it remains suspended, or after a certain period of time, it settles at the bottom of the beaker. So when we take this muddy water and try to pour this muddy water in the filter paper, in this flask in which we have kept filter paper. So when we pour this water, as you can see in this diagram, so this water passes through the filter paper. It can easily pass through the filter paper and starts collecting in this conical flask, and mud left behind as a residue in the filter paper. So whatever left behind in filter paper is known as residue, and the liquid portion which collected in a conical flask is known as filtrate. So in this manner we can separate clean water from the mud. So this process is known as filtration process. And what type of question can come in exam on the basis of this? For example, you are given a mixture of sand, water and mustard oil. How will you separate the components of this mixture? Explain with the help of different separation methods involved in it. We have a mixture of sand, water and mustard oil. Now, filter the paper through a glass funnel. So first step is, because it is a heterogeneous mixture, it is a combination of three things. So first we need to use this filtration method. By using this filter paper, when we pour, water and mustard will be collected as filtrate. So this conical flask, It is a filtrate which contains water and oil, and sand is left behind in the filter paper, which we call as residue also. So in this manner, we'll separate sand from filtrate. Now we need to separate water and mustard oil also. For that, we are using separating funnel. I'll discuss this separating funnel in detail. So for this, we use separating funnel so that it can easily form the separate layer of oil and water. Now, second method is evaporation. And evaporation is this process in which the liquid part evaporates and goes into air in the form of vapors. So this method is used to remove the volatile components which act like a solvent from its non-volatile components, which is a solute. An example of such kind of substances which we use for separation is, for example, we have ink. Like if this ink is a combination of blue or black ink. Suppose we have taken a component which is a combination of blue or black ink. Now we add water into it, and then if we provide heat, when we provide heat to it, so the vapors of the ink evaporates. One ink evaporates and the other one remain behind in the watch glass. And this evaporation process we use when we want to remove water from the salt water. In this salty water or in sea water, salt is contained. That is sodium chloride. So if we want that sodium chloride, we need to remove water from it. So we use evaporation. But when we are performing this evaporation process to get the pure salt, still impurities are left behind. So for that, we use some other method also, which I'll discuss later. So in evaporation process, there is the conversion of water into water vapors. Next is centrifugation. Centrifugation technique is a special kind of technique in which when two liquids are mixed as a mixture. Now in this, it is used to separate the suspended particles. As you can see here, these suspended particles of insoluble substance from a liquid by rotating at its high speed. If we rotate this mixture at high speed, these suspended particles which are present here, they separate out, and the lighter particles comes at the surface and heavier particles are settled down. So in this manner, we can easily separate the two mixtures if insoluble substances are present in a liquid. And we need to separate it. We need to separate it by using this centrifuge machine. And this method generally we use to separate cream from milk. We separate cream from milk. If you take milk and then by using centrifuge machine, or generally we use in our kitchen also when we are using blender, so in that case also that blender, the agitator act like an axis. So it separates the suspended particles from the liquid. Apart from this, it is also used to diagnose blood and urine test. This method we use in blood and urine test also. Other uses, I'll just write here, it can use in blood and urine test. It can be used to separate butter from cream, and it is also used to wash clothes, to squeeze water from wet clothes. In drainer we are using in machine from wet clothes. So these are applications which we use for separating the substance. Now next is chromatography. Chromatography basically used to separate those mixtures in which those two liquid mixtures in which have different solubility rate. So depending upon their solubility, we use this chromatography method. And how can we use this method? Let's see here. This is known as paper chromatograph. And when we dip this chromatograph paper in a water, on this chromatograph paper, here you can see one ink spot is there, which is a combination of two or more liquids. So when we dip this paper in water, just dip only the end and this paper starts absorbing water. When it starts absorbing water, the water starts rising up. So once it reaches here, remove this chromatograph paper and you'll observe that this ink, which is a combination of different dyes or colors, they also starts appearing as small spots or stains on this chromatograph paper. And this substance which has highest solubility rate, it moves faster and it attains highest position or it attains peak position. So more soluble will move more faster and it comes at the topmost position. So in this manner, we can easily separate the different dyes which are present in a particular ink. And it is used to separate drugs from blood. So we are using chromatography method for removing drugs from blood or to remove dyes or pigments from natural colors. These are uses of chromatography, and this entire apparatus is known as paper chromatography. What kind of question can come in exam? First is, what is chromatography? So in this you need to write definition of chromatography. Like it comes from the Greek word chroma, which means color, and the chromatography implies writing in color. So actually this technique was initially used to separate colored components, which I have just explained. If we want to separate the pigments or the dyes from ink, we use this technique. And in this, number of types such as adsorption, thin layer, paper, and gas chromatography, we have different types of chromatography. So paper chromatography is very simple, which I just explained to you. So you need to write about this chromatography in detail. Then if you want to separate two immiscible liquids, here immiscible liquid means when liquids do not mix together, they form a separate boundary. So this kind of mixture is known as heterogeneous mixture. And the best example of this kind of mixture is oil and water. Or we can use this separation for extracting iron from its ore also. So in this technique, we use distillation first of all. First method is distillation. In this distillation, as you can see this arrangement in which we have taken acetone and water. Generally, distillation method is used to separate those liquids whose difference in boiling point is more than 25 Kelvin. If their difference in the boiling point is more than 25 Kelvin, then only we use this distillation method to separate the components. Now, just look at this example. We have taken a mixture of acetone and water. When we provide heat to this mixture, it starts evaporating. Acetone being less boiling point, it evaporates at faster rate. And this thermometer which we are using here, it is used to record the temperature. Now when this acetone evaporates, it passes through the condenser where it liquefies and gets collected in this beaker. In this manner, we can easily separate acetone and water. because they have a difference in their boiling point more than 25 Kelvin. And apart from this, mixture of ether and toluene can also be separated because it is it has its temperature difference is it is 300 K and it is 384. So their boiling point is this much. And second, or you can use benzene and aniline. We can also separate benzene and aniline for by using this distillation method. Now, apart from this distillation, so first I'll discuss question which comes in exam on the basis of this distillation method. List two conditions essential for using distillation as a method for the separation of components. First is the components of mixture must be miscible with each other. It means they can mix with each other. That is the first condition. And second is they have a difference in their boiling point more than 25 degrees Celsius. So these are two conditions if we want to implement this distillation method. Next is fractional distillation. Fractional distillation method is used to separate those mixtures whose difference in the boiling point is less than 25 degrees Celsius or Kelvin. Okay, so if the difference in the boiling point is less than 25 Kelvin, then only we use this fractional distillation method. And example of such kind is like here we have taken a mixture of ethanol and water. So when we provide heat, so these goes into this fractional distillation depending upon their boiling point. And this goes into this ethanol, goes into this condenser where it cools down and converts into liquid form, where it is then in this conical flask, it gets deposited as a distillate. So in this manner, we can use this fractional distillation. And apart from this method, apart from this example, petroleum distillation is also there. In that case also we are using fractional distillation method if we want to separate components which are present in petroleum. Petroleum or crude oil is also known as black gold, which is a mixture of n number of products which we use in different areas. And the question can come, enumerate any two differences between simple and fractional distillation. Here simple distillation means normal distillation which we are saying. So that distillation we use, simple distillation we are using for those liquids whose difference in the boiling point is more than 25 degrees Celsius, and fractional distillation we use for those liquids whose difference in boiling point is less than 25 degrees Celsius. So this is the main difference between simple distillation and fractional distillation. So apart from this, just a second. Okay, now next is draw a label diagram showing the process of fractional distillation. So in this, you need to draw this diagram which I have just explained to you, or if the question demands then you have to elaborate it, so then you need to explain this process completely. One more this method is there which is separating funnel. This is a separating funnel which I have missed, which is used to separate two immiscible liquids. This is separating funnel, and this is separating funnel, and it's a beaker. Here one stopper is present. So when we take a mixture of oil and water, so once we mix them together, oil makes a separate layer because it cannot dissolve in water. And when we open this knob, then water starts flowing down and gets collected in this beaker. Once the water gets collected, this oil makes a separate layer here and we turn off this knob. And in this way, we can easily separate oil from water. It is used for two immiscible liquids. We can use this method for two immiscible liquids. It's a separation by separating funnel. Now, next method is crystallization method. In this method, whatever product will get in the purest form, in the geometrical shape crystals form. So solids are separated from a solution and we'll get those solids in the form of crystals. So in this technique, first evaporation takes place. When we take a mixture, so we provide heat, and after providing heat, the liquid component which is present in it, it evaporates and goes into the atmosphere in the form of vapors. And solid part is left behind in the form of crystals. And this method we use to get purified form of common salt or sodium chloride. Earlier I was telling you evaporation method we are also using, but when we are performing evaporation method, still some impurities are left behind in the crystals of salt. So we need to remove those impurities also. So that's why we are using this crystallization method, because when we are performing this crystallization method, we'll get the purest form of substances in the form of crystals. Now the question can come in this way: crystallization is a better technique than evaporation. Give one reason to justify the answer. Just now I told you, when we are performing evaporation, during evaporation water can evaporate, but still that solid contains some impurities along with it. But when we are performing crystallization method, because here we are not giving direct heat, we are not providing direct heat to the crystals. So we'll get only the purest form of the solid, and although the liquid component which is present in it, it evaporates. Another question can come: which separation technique you will apply for the separation of the following mixture? Children, they'll give any example to you and then they'll ask, name the technique. So these type of question can come in exam, generally in 1 mark or 2 mark. So you need to write only the name of the method. Here no need to explain entire method, just write down the separation technique. So for this you need to see what kind of mixtures are present, what type of components are present in that mixture. Like first is oil from water. These are two immiscible liquids. So for that we are using separating funnel. Second is camphor from sand. Camphor, it can easily convert into a gaseous form without going through liquid phase. So we are using sublimation technique. And the next one is sodium chloride from its from its solution in water. Crystallization. Don't write evaporation in this. As I told you, when we are performing evaporation, still impurities are left. That's why we always use this crystallization technique. Although evaporation is a part in this crystallization technique, but actual technique which we are using is crystallization method. Because with the help of this method, we'll get pure crystals of sodium chloride. The next is cream from milk, and the answer is centrifugation. This is machine, and but you need to write name of technique, that is centrifugation. So you'll write centrifugation, don't write centrifugal machine. It's only an apparatus which we are using for in this technique. Then next is metal pieces from engine oil of a car by using filtration technique, because oil can easily pass through as a filtrate and the solid substances left behind as a residue. So when we pass it through the filter paper, engine oil can pass, but metal pieces being larger in size, they'll remain as residue and engine oil is collected in a beaker as a filtrate. So these are different techniques or the mixtures which we are using for different substances or different kind of mixtures. Then fractional distillation of air to obtain gases. As we know that air is a mixture of several gases. It is a combination of so many gases. And if we need to separate out those gases, so we'll use fractional distillation method. In this method, first of all, we need to collect the air and then compress it. And when we compress under high pressure and low temperature, then it cools down. So when it cools down, then it passes through the this fractional distillation column, where this in this column it remains there for a certain period of time. Then it cools down and then it starts separating. So here we can get in this fractional column, depending upon the temperature, first we'll get nitrogen, then argon will come out, and then we finally get liquid oxygen. So depending upon their boiling point, we'll get these gases in a different ways. So this is how we can separate the air with the help of fractional distillation. Now this table is extremely important because it shows which separation method we are using for different mixtures. If two immiscible liquids are present, we use separating funnel. If ammonium chloride and sand is there, we use sublimation. Dye is in black ink, we use chromatography. These methods I have already discussed with you. And if two miscible liquids are present, we use distillation. So here particular example is given, acetone and water. If it is not given, then in that case you can write distillation or fractional distillation. But it is mentioned here, so that's why we are using distillation method. Then solid particles from insoluble like milk and cream. So we use centrifugation. So you need to learn these methods and what kind of mixtures are there. So I hope this is clear to you. Now, how can we purify water? See, whatever water is sent to sewage treatment plant, that water contains lots of impurities. First, we need to remove those impurities and make it usable. For that, we use certain techniques or methods so that we'll get purified form of water which we can use. Now, how to purify that water? Just see here. First is reservoir. A reservoir is a place where we collect entire water. When we collect water which contain lots of impurities in the form of organic and inorganic matter. So first we collect the entire impure water and then it is sent to the sedimentation tank. Here sedimentation tank. The use of sedimentation tank is it allows the heavier particles to settle at the bottom. So whatever impurities are present in water and those are heavier in weight, so they'll settle down. Being heavier, they'll not remain suspended in the water, so settle down at the bottom and then it is passes to the loading tank. So then this loading tank where the suspended particles are remain there. Now these suspended particles remain in the water and whatever is left behind here we use it in the form of manures. So first we segregate them out. Now after passing through the loading tank, it passes through the filtration tank, which is a combination of different layers. So when the water which still contain impurities, it passes through the filtration tank, which is a combination of different layers. So that water passes through different layers and then water gets filtered out. So here we can see heavier particles So they pass it through these three layers: gravel, coarse gravel, and fine sand. So these are the different layers through which water is filtered. Now, as you can see here, so when these are settled in different layers, whatever impurities are present, these are settled in these different layers, and then this pure form of water, it passes to the this tank in which chlorine is present, because still it contains some bacteria which are not useful for us. So we need to remove those germs. So for that we add chlorine into this, which kill all the bacteria which are present in water, and then this purified form of water reaches to our home. So in this manner, we'll get the purest form of water. And the question can come in exam, write steps involved in purification of water. So you need to write those steps, like stage 1, we collect water in reservoir, then it is sent to the sedimentation tank where solid or the heavier particles are settled down, then it goes to the loading tank where suspended particles which were light in weight, they allow to settle, then it is moved to the filtration tank which has three layers like sand layer, coarse layer, gravel. As you can see here, these three layers are present. So these layers acts like a filter, and after passing all these layers, water is sent to the this chlorination tank where chlorine is added, which helps to remove all the germs present in water to make it fit for consumption. So in this manner, we'll get pure form of water. So I hope till here it is clear to everyone what are the different techniques we are using for different method, different mixtures, which is a combination of different type of components. So it depends on the components, what type of components are present in a mixture. Accordingly, we'll use different techniques. So I hope this is clear to everyone. Thank you all of you. In next class, I'll discuss few question answers related to this chapter. Thank you everyone.